It finally happened. Usually this Zerg player plays in literally every single online tournament. Usually there are dozens of replays available of this man every single week, but he decided to take what seemed like a bit of a break. About 2 weeks ago is when none other than Dark played in his last tournament, and not until, well, today did he start playing again. I mean, I even saw some people on the internet wonder whether or not the Dark actually begun his mandatory military service. But then he apparently, yeah, I guess he just took a little bit of time to chill. He decided to sign up for an event once more. His opponent in today's best of 3 series, playing with the red Terran SCVs in the opposite corner of Dynasty, we have none other than ByuN. This should be a fantastic best of 3. Both of these guys ridiculously good. Obviously Dark, yeah, he's going up against ByuN. ByuN can be a bit of a tricksy Terran player. He's been doing this thing a lot on this map where he builds the first barracks in the middle of nowhere, and this can kind of freak a lot of Zerg players out, but I'm sure, as we all know, Dark, not really somebody who's afraid. He will be more than happy to wrestle in the mud if that's what ByuN is aiming for, so let's see. We're not gonna go, apparently, for a hatchery over at the gold base. This has become a very common location for a hatchery to be built. Talking in the observer chat. Ay, 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 ay. Can we get a judge? A Terran player who can judge this, whether or not that's... I don't think it's okay. No, talking in observer chat somehow, for no apparent reason, gets recorded in the replay files, and there is no way for me to turn it off. Nah, we can't get a Terran judge. If we get a Terran player to judge it, they will accidentally buff the Liberator somewhere. We need to be careful with these sorts of things. ByuN, though, is going to be making that in-base expansion. Now, to clarify, this is played, even though it was played, well, as of me casting it, literally this morning. This is the current version of StarCraft 2, so it's a little bit confusing at this point in time. We essentially have like 3 different types of games that I can currently cast. First off, we would have the current version of the game, which is what this series is. Secondly, we would have PTR games with the updated version of the multiplayer balance patch. And then we also still have some, what are supposedly good replays from the previous version of the PTR balance patch. Is that confusing? Yes. I can imagine it might be a little bit annoying as well. But this is, you know, in StarCraft land, we generally don't get a ton of upgrades. So a little bit of confusion for a month or so is probably okay, right? We get a few weeks of confusion every half year at most. I think it was 8 months ago that we had our most recent balance patch. By the time that this one is cooked up and ready to get out of the oven, it's probably 9 months or so. So not all too surprising to see a little bit of this confusion, because a lot of tournaments are still running in both versions of the game. Now, we have a Roach Warren. A very, very quick Roach Warren. No Zergling speed or anything along those lines here for Dark. He is ready to head across the map. The Queen here trying to see if it can shield away against that Reaper. Luckily here for ByuN, he does still spot this. ByuN did not go, though, for a very quick, well, factory here. He decided to play this with a double Rex opener. It does mean that a couple roaches here. Yeah, exactly. Behind the back of the gold mineral line. Super annoying for the Terran player to have to deal with. If you have a Cyclone, you can push this back. If you have a Banshee, you can push this back. But if you open up with double barracks, what do? Look at this guy. Smug little smile on his face as well, I'm sure. Alright. Couple Marines will be running around. Stimpack is going to finish up nice and early. Those roaches will certainly not fight against Stim here. Oh. Well, I say certainly. Are we gonna sacrifice? Why are we sacrificing him? Seems a bit silly. I guess he's planning on just running away, but... This is such a dark move. He's gonna run it away, yeah. Run away, little Ravager. Don't let him sneak. No, don't lose him. No! Stimpak's so quick. Dark not quite expecting it. Oh, and ultimately... Was that an all army hotkey, Stimpak? Well, that's embarrassing. Anyways, ultimately the units still arrived on the battlefield, and I guess they can join in together. And honestly, getting all those roaches 2 of them that morphed into Ravagers for just 4 Marines. Plus, you get away with that gold base. I mean, you lose a little bit of mining, I guess. Yeah, Dark did make a lot of drones during all of this, so maybe it's still a worthwhile trade for him. He's already building a 4th hatch, by the way, which is really quick. It is curious. It is curious to see how this is gonna play out right now. This is effectively a 16 Marine drop right now. Generally speaking, these hit a little bit sooner, but since those Marines are distracted, or were distracted, ByuN's gonna show up maybe 20 seconds late. Then again, though, Dark, he's been making a lot of drones during all of this. Queens are also quite far away. You expected those Marines to go straight into the main. That's where they are, yeah, gonna be heading on over at this time, but I honestly don't like this defense here from Dark all too much. Like, Roaches will push this away eventually, but Roaches are relatively slow. Unless Terran decides to actually stand and fight, yeah, I think ByuN should have picked up and left already. There was really nothing for him to gain from that engagement. ByuN can run circles around his opponent here for the foreseeable future. Double Evolution Chamber. Triple Barracks on the other side of the map. We do already have double NG Bay as well, and this is going to be a nice advantage. It will be +1 missile together with +1 carapace for Dark. He is also going into the Roach speed, so obviously he can use that to his advantage here, but it does kind of mean that he is playing on... He's playing on the back foot, right? Because upgrades are a little bit later, his economy is nothing to write home about, plus he's playing Roach Ravager on this map. It's okay. But generally speaking, this is a phenomenal map for Terran regardless. And now, well, even getting a whole lot of these queens, getting rid of some of those creep, some of those creep tumors here. It's a great start here for ByuN. We have been seeing this map quite a bit, by the way, in Best of 3 series as of late. I'm not exactly sure as to why. This is, looking at the statistics, just a bad map for Zerg. But they have been, well, we've seen players like Shin do it quite a bit. Dark has been doing it. We've seen a lot of the high-end Korean Zergs in particular just let this map slip through the vetoes. Not exactly sure as to why. Well, I can imagine ByuN doesn't mind. This map has gotten a little bit better, though, for Zerg players. When it first came out, it was about an 80% advantage for Terran going up against Zerg. These days, it's not quite that extreme. But it does still mean that Terran is just having a little bit of an easier time. Yeah, Roach Ravager is really bad when it comes to stopping these sort of medevac drops. It's just too slow. Like, look at the Roaches running on over right now. When you're not in position to greet these drops, it means you, well, are too slow to... Like, if you have Zerglings, right? You have Zergling Baneling rolling around. You can sometimes reactively defend. But when you're playing Roaches, you have to be proactive about it. Either you defend this location... Oh, yeah. We are actually not playing this as cleanly as we could, though. That is the 3rd medevac going down unnecessarily. This one to Corrosive Biles. It is making this game a whole lot more playable for Dark than it really is supposed to be. +2/+2 coming up here, though, for ByuN, nice and quick. Hive is on the horizon. Do we have any sort of... Yeah, we have a Hydra Den, but no Lurker Den, right? No Lurker Den here for the Zerg. I guess Vipers are still really useful. This hatchery is super dead. This is one of the most dead hatcheries I've ever seen in my life. And now 9 minutes into the game, we go into Zergling speed. The new meta. Okay. In the meantime, ByuN is setting up his own 4th base, whilst also winning the fight over here. Yeah, and while this is by no means the cleanest game I've seen ByuN play, it's still just miles ahead of what Dark is doing. Dark is somebody who can wiggle his way out of these situations. We've seen him do that time and time again. But this is a painful game to play if you're a Zerg, because there's just... nothing's going well, man. Right from the very start. I guess the little bit of Roach aggression was nice, but making that early game Roach Warren also is quite costly. Took a lot of damage in the process. Those siege tanks are having a grand old time. For some reason, ByuN, did you forget your siege tanks? What? How? Why did we... He's like, yep, job's done. He just threw down his tools and went home. Generally speaking, you pick up your stuff, man, before you go home. If ByuN worked in construction, he would be dealing with missing tools all the time. He basically just killed the hatchery and just decided to leave the rest of that Terran army as a gift. I would not want to be a siege tank in ByuN's army. Apparently, you're just a means to an end. Sometimes I guess you can feel a little guilty, right? He's had that problem as well with Medevacs right now. You just deal too much damage with him and you're like, here, take it. It's yours. A little early Christmas gift right here. ByuN goes trick-and-treating on the other side of the map. This is giving Dark quite a good setup again, though. Like, I really feel like this is mostly down to the Terran player making sloppy mistakes, but jokes aside, this is giving Dark a lot of additional firepower. Imagine this Terran army with, well, maybe not all of those siege tanks making it out, but just 3 additional tanks in this force would be huge. You have the ghosts coming up, though. Lurkers are on the horizon. They're unupgraded at this point in time. And it means that ByuN can continue fighting here quite nicely. Oh, Blinding Cloud is going to help out quite a bit. Still a lot of siege tanks on the back. On the back of his army. Let's see. Oh, those Hydras at a choke point. Oh, imagine 3 more tanks here. Yeah, I think ByuN still gets this done. He's also gone into the +3. Still, though, he hasn't actually killed any of the economy here. That hatchery is nowhere lower than it used to be. The Vipers ended up getting sniped. The Lurkers are also gone, and that's what makes this very, very tricky for the Zerg. The fact that he can no longer use those units right now, the Vipers in particular, is painful. Those are very much so the type of troops that you want to keep around and let them accumulate value over time. Okay. I mean, I don't think ByuN has enough. No, I don't think he has enough. There are some reinforcing units here, and he is starting up additional command centers. I wouldn't mind a few depots in that spot. Or at least something to plug that hole, because we have seen a lot of Zerg players running in through that opening, but ultimately he doesn't need it. There is no Zerg counterattack going across the map. It's ByuN who wins game number 1. Nice game right there from ByuN. Despite a little bit of sloppiness, mistakes can happen. Believe it or not, pro gamers are human after all. At least the majority of them. The jury is not yet out over, well, whether or not Cyril is a human. MaxPax? Do you think MaxPax is a human? Honestly, at this point, it's hard to say. ByuN, though, apparently is a human. Yeah. Apparently he even gets, like, wrist pain and stuff. Like other humans, too. Well, most people, I guess, end up with, like, knee pain and, like, maybe, like, I don't know, their hips and their backs and all that, right? But, yeah, pro gamers, pro gamers have more of a upper body issue, which is fair enough. Am I a human? I'm sure if you analyze all my videos, you can create a pretty much perfect artificial intelligence for Lowko Television. I will be casting video games in perpetuity. I'm trying to think what went wrong in that game for Dark. It's a couple of little things, sure, but I honestly think that his biggest mistake was playing Dynasty. It sounds silly, but when you're playing a best of 3 and you have a 9 map pool, you get so many vetoes. Like, why would you... It means that he's let other... Like, he vetoed another map, right? He's doing it on purpose. Dark is obviously the type of guy that will play mind games like that. I would be very surprised, for example, if he would ever let that be a map number 1 in a best of 3 in an offline tournament. So maybe Dark is just being a bit of a memester, right? Which he tends to be. He just kind of said, haha, let us go ahead and play Dynasty for game number 1 just for giggles. But I do think overall, if your goal is to win, you're better off avoiding Dynasty as a Zerg against Terran. Even though the win-loss ratio has gotten a lot better over the months, it's not quite the 80% that it used to be. It's still just suboptimal for Zerg. Okay. So where do we take this from here? Queen spawns right at the current moment. Even though the queen, by the way, in the upcoming balance patch, it is going to be 25 minerals more expensive. The hatchery is going to be 25 minerals cheaper. And at first glance, you would imagine that is actually quite bad for Zerg. And it is certainly a nerf, but there are some small upsides as well. For example, you can now build the hatchery in the upcoming balance patch 25 minerals cheaper, which also means that the queen will spawn a couple seconds quicker. Because you usually start up the queen right around the time that you also start up the hatchery. It's going to change the dynamic of the early game just a tad. Obviously, it's only a few seconds here, a few seconds there, but the odds of a Reaper actually getting an early game kill with a normal 16 hatch opener, if that is indeed what Zerg players decide to stick on, they are going to go down. Losing that Reaper right there does also kind of suck. Obviously, ByuN in the previous game did see his opponent going into a really nice and early Roach Warren, but none of that is the case this time around. Honestly, this is a safe build anyways for Terran, so he's decided to go triple command center. Very quick triple CC into Hellion Banshee. This is the Terran bread and butter. Pretty sure you could blindfold ByuN and he will still play this build order perfectly. He will still be able to get the perfect setup. Might be a little bit difficult to see his mouse cursor, I guess, with his eyes closed, but he could still figure out the timings pretty much flawlessly, because this is something that he will have done, well, thousands of times. Maybe even tens of thousands of times. This is such a comfortable build. Dark decides to go for a relatively fast lair. Baning Nest coming up right now, so I guess this will just be good old Ling Bane. Banshee. Together with the double tech lap over here, right? So it's gonna be a Banshee together with the Stimpak. Dark, in the meantime, just playing a very conventional build order as well. This may be actually the most standard game that I've ever casted between these two. Like, this is super normal. Very passive map as well, nothing out of the ordinary here. When we talk about conventional or the quote-unquote standard strategies, this is exactly what comes to mind. Hellion Banshee into Marines and Marauders. Double upgrades, the whole shebang. For Zerg, it's quick early game economy into a quick lair with quick baneling speed, and then into double upgrades for those units too. Generally speaking, this leads towards ghosts for the Terran. Double factory as well. Usually second factory goes down over here at the front. A little bit later on. We'll probably see him build up to 5 barracks right now, and then a 4th command center, second factory, the whole thing. In the meantime, for Zerg, we'll probably see him go into Hydras and then Lurkers. That is a very common way to play it. You can also play it, of course, in the Ultralisk way. Yeah, judging by the timing of the Hydra, then it could be either. We'll have to keep an eye on it. Here go the Banshees. He could even stick around on just Ling Bane. So the Baneling speed is a pivotal upgrade. Like, this is the main upgrade that allows you to stay safe as a Zerg player. You don't really need anything else. Like, as soon as your creep is out on the map and it's not really hindered all too much, you can deal with basically any marine-based attack in the early and mid-game pretty easily. Maybe if Terran hits you with a drop that you didn't quite expect, there are some issues that Zerg can run into, but this is basically Dark saying, yo, let's do like a 10-minute no rush. You don't attack me too much, I won't attack you too much. Maybe a bit of a, I don't know, like a Hellion run by, or maybe a couple Banelings here and there. But this is essentially both players with a bit of a gentleman's agreement. There's the Hive coming up already. 6 minutes and 40 seconds on a Hive is quick. I guess this is into Ultras. Now, In the upcoming balance patch, Ultras are going to be quite a bit better because they have the opportunity to push their units around. It means that they will be able to get to the front of a battle line much quicker. They will also have slightly less speed though, with the speed improvement, the anabolic synthesis upgrade. But in this version of the game, they can still certainly get stuck. There's the armory coming up. 4th command center. 2nd factory over at the front, like I was trying to say. ByuN is already making a wall here as well. Zergling just poking away at that wall, but immediately getting gunned down. Okay. +2/+2. And I'm assuming this will be Adrenal Glands together with, yep, an Ultra Cavern. This should be quite a holdable attack right here for Dark, but it is still one that's relatively delicate. You have a lot of low HP units that do a lot of damage, but if you misengage this, you can still easily lose the game. Dark already making additional units right now. He's setting up what seems to be a surround. Queens in the front to try and soak up a couple of those siege tank hits. Manually move commanding the Banelings. Perfect defense by Dark. Textbook. Absolute textbook. Yeah, this is the type of game that historians will be studying. Nah, but this is about as good as it gets. Very clean defense. You know, this is for the haters. The Dark haters out there. There's not a lot of them, but I have seen people say that Dark just, quote-unquote, can't play normal. Well, I guess he's not going Hydra Lurker. He's going Ultras, which is a little bit weird, but this is very conventional. Maybe all it takes is the man to take a tiny little break, right? We have him apparently not playing any tournaments for about a week and a half. Maybe 2 weeks. ByuN should start up a Ghost Academy right about right now. Ghost Academy in Barracks 6, 7, and 8. If he does not have the Ghost Academy... Honestly, you should have already had it, to be honest. If he does not have any Ghost out by the time that those Ultras hit their Adrenal Glands upgrade, which at this point is going to be pretty much impossible, he will be in a world of trouble. As much of a meme as Ultras are, Pure Marine really does not deal with them well. Chitinous plating on the horizon. That's the armor upgrade for the Ultra. It's gonna make them significantly tankier, and that's the reason. Oh my god, we're going mass command center. ByuN is playing for like minute 35. ByuN is playing for, or Dark is playing for minute 11. I think that Dark is just about ready to smack his opponent in the face. Now we go Ghost Academy. I wonder if those additional command centers are a little bit too greedy. Here we go. Open the floodgates. The Ultras have arrived. There are a couple Widow Mines, but not a ton of them. A lot of that Terran army was also marching towards the left side of the map. There is a drop down south. This one is killing what seems to be an insignificant base. And there's just nothing to deal with those Ultras. ByuN decided to add on like 4 or 5 additional command centers. Okay, maybe 3. Anyways, he decided to add on a lot of additional command centers before adding on the Ghost Academy. You would imagine after all these years, he would know the timing of that structure. Well, yeah, he gets punished for it right away. There's a lot of skill check moments in a game of StarCraft, right? So in the early game, we kind of assume that Terran is going to be dealt with that early game Reaper by the Queens, right? You get the Zerglings out to deal with the follow-up Hellions. You try to... Oh no, I have cat aggro. Hold up. Toby. Oh god. Okay, hold up 1 sec. He was eyeing my Twitch trophy. Twitch sent me a trophy a couple of days ago because I reached 5 million hours watch time. And they sent me a little trophy. He's like, what's this? Can I tip it over with my paw? Luckily, it's pretty heavy, but it would suck if that thing broke. I'm pretty proud of it. Anyways. There's a lot of skill checks in a game of StarCraft 2. Right? We assume that the Spore Crawlers are down by the time that the Banshees show up. We assume that there's a little wall built by the time that Baneling speed finishes up. Right? We assume certain things, and... well, the assumption that Dark made in the previous game was that his opponent would have a bunch of ghosts. there's these interesting agreements that are tested pretty much every single game. Because if you don't fulfill the quote-unquote rule, if you don't finish the requirement to defend, you will just straight up lose the game. And even though we don't see a lot of straight up macro games between these two, that was as standard as it comes. And ByuN decided to delay his Ghost Academy. That was really his first big deviation. And he got punished for it immediately. So that means that it comes down to side Delta. I think that's probably the most standard game I've seen Dark play. Maybe even all year. Like, Dark is very much so the type of guy who will build a hatchery in the opponent's natural expansion and then rush a bunch of roaches across the map and do a Nidus all-in and all the rest of it. That was all very conventional. Does that mean he's gonna do the same thing again? I'm assuming here we'll probably see ByuN do mostly a similar build once more. Honestly, that game was going well for him until it didn't, right? Which is the nature of any StarCraft game. He's technically being a little bit greedy here. No SCV Scout, no Reaper Scout. He has no clue about what's happening on the other side of the map. He even put the Marine in the corner over here. But it's got a nice little lookout location here to gun down any Zerglings that might be running on over in this direction. And it looks like he's going to be able to get away with this greed. It will be a reactor on the back of this. We will see the switcheroo. And I'm assuming we're going to see a third command center right here. Right. Oh, okay. We're going to go starport first. All right, fair enough. In the meantime, on the other side of the map, third hatchery is building. Dark will likely continue making queens here for the foreseeable future. And I'm assuming we will see him once more go into a lair and then into a baneling nest. Because that previous game worked out just fine for him, so may as well go ahead and give it a shot. Generally speaking, when you don't go for the quick triple CC, you do build this third command center right over here at the front. You kind of need a bit of a wall. Against a big Zergling runway, it can be a little bit of a disaster. The problem is that obviously if you make it over here, this pesky little overlord is just gonna see it coming in from a mile away. Most maps have a little bit of a pervert pillar, right? It's where Zerg players like to hang out. They like to sit on that high ground and just kind of look at you. Yeah, much like every hotel room has a chair that's hanging out in the corner. Every Terran natural has one of those pillars as well. Everybody loves a pervert pillar. Actually, some of the map makers have been removing the pervert pillars. Ooh, it's a different build here altogether. We're gonna go into an armory. This is a Hellbat Marine Banshee. Yeah, we do have the third command center now eventually. This will be picked up on, I'm sure, here by Dark. But is he going to be prepared against this? I like this push here from ByuN because the Banshees... Or sorry, the Banelings will not be quite ready for this sort of thing in time. This is still relatively quick Banelings though, but Dark needs to actually see this coming in. And then have the Zerglings available, and then also morph those Zerglings into Banelings in time. Very much so a skill check, much like the Ultras in the previous game. Baneling Nest is only about 3/4 of the way done. The heck bats are already here. It's my family-friendly Hellbat. Banshees are running around. There is indeed a Spore Crawler, but it's set up in such a way that it can deal with a Liberator. Honestly, though, decent crisis management here by Dark. Not really losing anything critical. He's already all the way up to 59 drones. And in the meantime, ByuN is now making 4 barracks all at once. This push has actually not really done anything. Those queens are doing just fine. Dark's just over-making drones. He's saying, yo, I know you're gonna kill drones, but what about I just make so many that you can't stop me? Now, this is a lot of damage being done, though. 9 drones is substantial. Dark's still 9 drones ahead. He's going Spire. Okay. We're going double Evo. I think we should still go Baneling speed, no? He does see the Evo chamber, but he didn't see the Spire. Second Banshee also goes down. The problem with this build for ByuN is that it really needs to deal some sort of damage. Like, if you don't deal any damage at all, you just fall behind. So, he did deal a bunch of damage, but it was also not free. 8 Hellions and 2 Banshees is quite costly. And Dark was already in a really wonderful position, economically speaking. I don't know about going Spire before Bailing Speed, though. I don't know about Spire in general. Obviously, in the upcoming balance patch, they're changing the Thor. The Thor is gonna absolutely eat Mutalisk for breakfast. I don't know why, because we rarely see Mutas against Terran, but apparently Dark is mixing it in this particular game. Let's see if ByuN is gonna need any of those units as well, as he's now gonna show up. This timing on the third base, though, for Terran is relatively uncommon these days. A lot of Terrans are favoring that fast third command center. So this is one of those things that we may not see the Zerg players have as much experience against as of late. I think Dark is going to be able to get away with this, though. Spire is done. We have 1 Muta and the supply block. It's looking like my own ladder games. You try to start up your big influx of Mutas. You try to smash your piggy and your supply block. Yeah, piggy bank smashed or not. We have to wait now until those Overlords of Shame come out. Oh, he actually cancelled it. He cancelled the Muta. Okay. Used it to get the +1 going and then started up 7 additional Mutas again. Well, this is a big opportunity here for ByuN. He's got a good army. There is a lot of creep here. He doesn't have a lot of energies for scans, but we have a second factory over at the front. Big Zergling run by, though. That Zergling run by could be absolutely yeah, this could be the end of the game, honestly, if you're not careful. So he pulls the SCVs quickly. I don't think ooh. Yeah, 1 SCV went down this entire game so far. Crazy good crisis management right there from ByuN. Now he's gonna see, though, what the Zerg player has been cooking up. One of the siege tanks goes down. Lingbane on the back of this as well. A lot of those Zerglings fell on the other side, right? If not all. Now the Mutas are almost forced to engage here by themselves. Micro Jackson does take a couple of those Banelings to the face, but I think he still has a decent enough army left over to continue to fight for a bit longer, trying to just tap as many of those Mutas out of the air as possible. Reinforcing Marines show up, and just like that, ByuN manages to create a chokehold on the opponent's third base with some really lovely micro. It's our Terran player who obtains the victory.